I am a counselor. I'm a therapist. I should know better. And I was shocked at how, again, I thought I knew it, but when it's happening to you, it's different. And the ink is on the paper. And they wake up and look around and say, oh, wow, what now? You never want to make decisions based in emotion. And people who are newly divorced are often very vulnerable emotionally.
Welcome back for another episode of Civility Wins, the Family Law Edition. I am your host, Kristen Goss, founder and owner of KWG, Family Legal and Mediation Services. We are your knowledgeable, warm, and gracious attorneys, and we help spouses divorce with civility, creating a legacy for themselves and those they love most. And today I have with us special guest Mary Owens. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Yes.
Yes. So I'm going to share a little bit about Mary, and then we're going to get into the discussion. So Mary C. Owens, she's a master of social work. She is a nationally known life transitions expert, certified coach, clinical social worker, and professional speaker. Over the course of her career, she's helped hundreds of clients overcome tremendous challenges and make amazing life transitions. And she has this book here, Embracing Change. We'll talk a little bit about that. It's on Amazon, so you want to get it. And so tell me, I always like to open up the conversation with why. There's always a reason behind why we do what we do. And so share with the audience why.
Well, for as long as I can remember, I've always wondered what makes people tick. And going through life and experiencing a lot of changes myself, I became interested in how do people navigate change? How do they get through very difficult times and come out the other side? I am classically trained as a clinical social worker, and I've worked with a bunch of different types of populations. And I got to a point in my career where I wanted to shift. So that's when I started to explore coaching and got a divorce certification as well as a life coaching certification. And when they asked, who do I want to work with? I thought, well, I can work with anybody. I've got great skills, right? And they're like, yeah, but for marketing, you have to figure out who you're speaking to. And I thought back during my own divorce and how I had so many emotions going on and the confusion and the loneliness. And I thought, I am a counselor. I'm a therapist. I should know better. And I was shocked at how, again, I thought I knew it, but when it's happening to you, it's different. Mm-hmm. But I thought, at the time, I could have used someone like me to kind of help the whole process of the transition a bit kinder and gentler, and I probably would have made fewer mistakes.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you mentioned divorce,
mm-hmm.
and I know that you help people in various transitions, divorce being one.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can share with the audience, there are people out there that may be contemplating a divorce, and they have questions. You mentioned the emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
How is it working with someone like you? If they're not sure.
Okay, if they're not sure. Yeah, I do work with people, mainly women, who aren't really happy in their marriages and aren't really sure if they want to stay married. And so for those clients, I work with them because my stance is you want to make sure that you've tried everything in your power to make the marriage worth, barring there being any physical and emotional abuse going on. Because divorce, as you know, is under the best of circumstances, a very difficult process. Mm-hmm. So you just want to make sure that you've tried everything. So I'll suggest marriage counseling, trial separation, which a lot of times people don't realize that a separation doesn't necessarily mean you're going to divorce. Sometimes it's like, no, let's separate, set up the rules. What does that separation going to look like? Do you get to date other people? Are you going to be working on yourself? And then reevaluate the situation. And if they do decide they want to divorce, then I'm able to help prepare them by finding someone like yourself, collaboratively trained. I'm kind of biased towards, but I have attorneys that I can refer to. I have financial advisors that I can refer them to, child specialists to refer them to make sure that all aspects of divorce are being managed. And I help with the emotional piece, but certainly, as you know, that's just part of the process.
Oh, I would say 90% of the process with me, which is understandable. It is a trauma, and it's validated, and they want to be validated for sure. And so the work that you do is very much appreciated. And speaking of divorce, that was prior or contemplating. What if someone has gone through a divorce? What does that look like? Because you do help people who are in transition from, married to being single again.
Yes. Probably the larger proportion of my clients are those that are newly divorced. They've gone through the legal aspects, they've gotten the divorce, they've distributed property, finances, and the ink is on the paper, and they wake up and look around and say, oh wow, what now? Kind of the crisis is over, and it's the reality sets in that I have to get up and start this new life. And so I work with them to, because it's a grieving process, right? You're depressed, you're angry, and it's not linear where it's nice and easy. It's one day you're angry, one day you're sad, and the next day, even 6 months out, you might still think, I can't even believe that this is happening to me. So I help manage that so that they can make decisions not based on emotion. You never want to make decisions based on emotion. And people who are newly divorced are often very vulnerable, emotionally, maybe financially, a whole slew of things going on. And people oftentimes jump into the quick fixes, jumping into a relationship maybe too quick because they're lonely.
Yeah.
Or making job moves because they're feeling unsteady versus really thinking these things through. Like, is this really the best thing that's for me? So I work with that, and then also helping them see that this is the reality, and nobody ever gets married to say, I really hope I get divorced. Okay, sometimes though that happens, and if that's where you find yourself, remember that this is also an opportunity. With change comes opportunity to really try things maybe that you've never tried before. I always say, what have you always wanted to do, but you've never done? And I know myself, I'm doing things, probably the biggest thing was starting my own company, that had I stayed in my marriage, I would never have even thought I could do. So you can really create, not to diminish your marriage, but you can create the next chapter that can be, equally fulfilling. It may look a lot different, but it can still be fulfilling.
I love that. I'm going to transition a little bit because you also deal with individuals who are in a transition and they're kind of in that sandwich generation that we talk about. And so they may have children, small children that they're raising, but they also have a parent or a loved one that has dementia or Alzheimer's or something else, and they're the caregiver for that person. Can you talk a little bit about how you work with individuals who are going through a transition like that?
Sure. We're seeing a huge population, a generation rather, of mainly professional women, because as women have progressed in careers and we've created these great careers, right? And men have started being, more active at home and caring for things. Still, women carry the brunt of the caregiving on their shoulders with the kids and with their parents. The daughters seem to be the ones that step up to care for parents. The brothers help sometimes, and it's not all, but it tends to be the women. So there they are, stuck with caring for kids, caring for their parents, And where does that leave them? And you've got a number of things going on. The role reversal, where the one who had been cared for, the adult child, is now the caregiver to the person who had been the caregiver. And with that change comes a lot of emotions. There's anger, there's guilt, there's disappointment. You know, a lot of parents have told me, I never wanted to have my kid have to take care of me. And they feel guilty. And these are all very valid emotions that are part of the process, but when you're going through it, it doesn't feel like it's normal. And so I work with the caregivers to normalize their feelings, because, yeah, they're angry, they're overwhelmed. And, you know, if you're a mom, your kids are mad at you if you're not spending time with them, but then if grandma's in the house, grandma is pulling for you too, you know, and so whoever you're working with, somebody else is feeling left out. And helping to manage through the emotions, and then also helping them to set boundaries, and maybe realizing they're not Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And there are resources available to bring into the home to help, because if you get burned out, you're not going to help anybody. And then helping the family to communicate how they're feeling, and just kind of normalizing it. It's a difficult situation, but I've also known families who have been able to use that time for having conversations and closeness with each other that they normally wouldn't have done, which can be very powerful, because, again, it's the aging process is a transition, and there's lots of emotions, and it's important, I think, for families to be able to support each other through those. But again, with that comes a lot of added responsibility that can be just totally overwhelming.
Absolutely. And I've been there with my dad, and having cared for him 12 years ago. Well, over 12 years ago. He passed 12 years ago. And speaking of divorce, that you brought up a great point, having the support and being able to talk through and communicating, because that can tear marriages apart as well. Not, you know, with the couple not being on the same page, right, or there not being communication that was addressed of how we're going to do this, how our boundaries going to be set, which boundaries need to be set. Right. So I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, and my mistake, I didn't mention the impact it has on the spouse of the adult child. Yeah. Particularly if it's where they're moving into the home. And that's one more person who needs you, and your time is being taken away. But again, I think it does have to do with, you know, finding what's the common truth, or what can we all agree on, right? Okay, we can agree on that we all want this family member to be treated with compassion, to get their care needed, and that the whole family should also have their needs met, right? We can agree. I think everybody would agree. Okay, so then what does that look like? And because, I've known marriages that took a beating because of it, relationships that are broken up because it can become so consuming. And you don't want the collateral damage. But again, what can we agree on? And it's that, you know, we all love each other, and so how do we do that? And bringing in people to help, because, you know, there's no shame in asking for help and bringing people in to, in fact, sometimes the professionals, they add a dynamic. You know, I've known some aides that have come in that have become part of the family. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing. It's not just hired help. It's people who really can come in and give a dimension to the elderly that the family can't. It's another friend of theirs. So, it's a stressful time, regardless of how you cut it. But again, how can we make this be a little bit of a kinder and gentler path?
I love it. I love it. So, author as well.
Yes.
You've written a few books.
No, this is my first book. I have plans
Okay.
for a second one.
Okay.
Looking at an interesting thing of stress. We've kind of always vilified stress as being bad.
Yeah.
And a lot of new research is that stress can actually be good and actually beneficial if you know how to use it. And it kind of rocked my world when I read it, because I was always about, oh, no, stress is bad. Let's calm down. Don't be stressed. And it's like, well, no. Maybe if you're stressed, that means you're being challenged. And maybe stress is your way of being energized and rising to the challenge to be more successful. Which is so it's kind of embracing stress now rather than embracing change. So that's next on the list.
Love it.
Of books to write. I do a talk around that. So my books usually follow my talks.
Speaking of that, I have another question. What upcoming projects do you have?
Well, I have a couple.
Yes.
I have an opportunity to begin facilitating groups of professionals who are at varying points of their career and are wanting to make sure they're kind of overwhelmed but satisfied, but they're wanting to rearrange and free up some time so that they can include some of the other activities that bring them joy. They love what they do, and obviously so they're very successful, but how can they carve out time to do other things, whatever that may be, that brings them joy. So that's in the pipeline. And then also doing a series of workshops with adult children or the elderly to provide education, kind of preventative, these are things that you can start thinking of now so that you don't have to wait till it's a crisis. With other professionals who work with the elderly in placement and finances and other things to provide educations to people so that, it's always good to be prepared and gather information before things happen, but that doesn't always happen that way. So that's the other thing that we're working on.
I love it. Love it. I'm excited to, especially with the book and stress, that definitely resonated with me.
One of the books that I read is a psychologist. She's out of Stanford, and she's done all the research on the reality of what stress is doing to the body, and it's to me it's amazing. But her thing is, she says, a meaningful life is a stressful life, because we don't, or at least we shouldn't, stress about things that we don't care about. So for stress, that means something that we care about. Something's going on there. And then how can you use that stress to say, okay, I'm up for this and I'm going to knock it out of the park? Which to me is just another way of more tools to use with my clients.
Love it. Love it. So last question for you, Mary. Share with the audience if they have questions or if they want to reach out to you or want to find out more information, where could they go? Okay,
you could go to my website, www.marycowens.com, or you can email me at mary@marycowens.com.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. You have watched another episode of Civility Wins, the Family Law Edition. Again, I am your host, Kristen Goss, founder and owner of KWG, Family Legal and Mediation Services. We are your knowledgeable, warm, and gracious attorneys. Please don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And you don't want to miss the next episode with Frank Rikas. He is a wealth manager. We're going to be talking taxes and some other money stuff. So please stay tuned. Until next time.